Live from Liquid Studio Group, it's 3 Men and a Mic with your host, Joe Barron, Gene Belmares, and the Honorable Javier Montemayor, our closer. 3 minds, 1 mic, 0 filter. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. 3 Men and a Mic starts now.
And we're live here at 3 Men and a Mic. Your host, Joe Barron, Javier Montemayor, and Gene Belmares. And sitting in for Joe, who is ill tonight, is my son, Joshua Belmares, who's going to be joining us. A big believer that we are not alone in the universe. Of course, he left his tin hat at home. But we're going to have an interesting discussion about whether or not we're alone in the universe. But first things we always do is recap. What was your week like? The last week before, from the show to the last week to this one, Josh. Big stories.
Yeah, definitely looking at. Obviously follow politics a lot, so seeing the development of the Strait of Hormuz has been pretty interesting lately. Yep. To see the ceasefire, not ceasefire. We're good. Attacking Indian ships. Now we attacked an Iranian ship now, so it's been pretty interesting to kind of follow that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got an effect on fuel prices for sure. Drive a diesel, for me, that's kind of expensive. But the national average was $3.15 this time last year, and Murphy's had it at $3.30. So it's already headed kind of back in the other way. Mm-hmm. We'll see where it goes. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, should we
it's not only gas prices, it's just prices across the board. Yeah. Going out to dinner for two has it's $100 and almost $200 in certain places, but any decent restaurant has increased their prices. The cost of goods has gone up across the board. Meat, poultry, vegetables. There's an increase in prices everywhere, and that's evident, it's just not only gas is more expensive, but just everything across the board, and that's what our community is dealing with.
Yeah, so, sure.
We are. The prices of gas and diesel are coming down incrementally, but there's still some ways to go.
Sure, and then of course that has an impact on a lot of the other stuff we talked about. The groceries and stuff, just getting them to market.
Yeah.
The cost of fuel does a lot to drive those prices up as well. So
we've gone from recession, inflation. Now we got a war. So
I guess we got to touch it all before he leaves office, right?
Yeah,
what else?
Might as well.
Hey, and we went back to the moon. We went back to the moon. We kind of circled it and came around, and of course this show topic tonight, probably going to touch on that a little bit, but we did that this time around. We successfully landed at the Pacific Ocean, and all good, and nice splashdown. Nice to have the astronauts back. Nice to be able to be ahead of the Chinese and the Russians and all the others in our space travel.
The last trip that was out there, from what I remember, was supposed to be a 10-day journey. Ended up being a 6-month journey.
That's
right.
They had to go and they had
Elon Musk had to go.
Elon Musk to the rescue. That's right.
Elon Musk to the rescue. So, thank you for that.
But now there's a story that I heard today on the Today Show that there is a push by NASA to establish a permanent base or a camp on the moon.
Really?
And so I guess our space exploration has gotten a little more confident.
I'm sure Trump's going to want to name it something.
Yeah, you never know. The Trump Moon.
Trump Moon Spa and Resort. Play a little golf out there.
That's right. Mar-a-Lago Space Resort.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting.
Great.
That'll be interesting.
I mean, it's a big leap for science. But speaking of science and scientists, the story that's out there right now is that you've had over a dozen scientists either killed or gone missing, just flat out left their keys at home, wallet, and just disappeared from the face of the earth in the last 2 or 3 years. And the FBI has finally gotten involved, and they're going to try to investigate.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Wow. Just U.S. scientists or like across the world?
U.S. scientists.
U.S. scientists.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Either involved in space exploration, space labs, or jet propulsion. So.
Wow.
I'm not sure why it's always been such a secretive deal, you know, and you've got that base in New Mexico, and you know, it's always been some top secret, top secret situation, you know. But I think it's very interesting, you know. Personally, I think that we're not alone, and I think we've had a lot of the influence from extraterrestrial, you know, since I can
Beginning of time.
beginning of time, yeah, you know, a lot of the Egyptian building and architecture, the Mexican architecture, the way the calendar, the Mexican calendar, the old Mexican calendars are written. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
It is, and it's going to be a nice hot topic. But speaking of secrets, you guys have a vote tomorrow, and so I know you're holding that close to the vest. But there's a big school board meeting tomorrow, and a decision to close schools or not close schools, and you know, committee that I served on. Thank you for appointing me. I got to learn a lot and did a lot of research onto that. And you know, my viewpoint was that we're not closing enough schools. Just because I see the trend throughout the state.
Sure.
I know when people are out there screaming mismanagement, how does 63% of the state's school districts operate in a deficit, and yet we're the only ones supposedly we're mismanaging? And then I'll make this last statement, I'll let you kind of jump in there, but the school district from a curriculum standpoint is an A-rated campus.
Sure.
You've received for the last 14 years some GFOA recognition from the governmental finance organizations and GASB, which is a General Accounting Systems Board, TEA, TAB. All of those have come back and recognized the school district for its accounting, accountability, and transparency. All of those are financial awards, and yet there are people out there who scream mismanagement. You know.
Well, I think people have to blame it on something, and the louder they scream, the more they believe they're going to be heard. But you know, the substance behind it, I tend to agree with you. You know, we've been audited by external auditors, by our internal auditors. You know, we've gone through all the accounting procedures that need to be followed. You know, I would say that the success of United, of the district in and of itself, goes hand in hand with the finances. You can't have the success that United gives and that United, you know, where United is without that financial management. Look, I think across the board, you're right. There's a move across the state to privatize public education. That's just what I see coming down from the governor's office, from Mike Morath, from Mike Miles, basically the new czar that's been appointed to oversee a lot of these closures, the Fort Worth district, the Houston ISD. There is a push for that for the state to take over as many districts as they can, because it is a privatization of public education. So I don't know what the board is going to do tomorrow, but I think we need to do something. And you know, I've been a part of the discussion at least now for going on 5-6 months now. You know, Judson just laid off over 500 employees.
Sure. Well, they cut them. I don't know that they laid them all off. I think
they cut them, but
they closed those positions in the budget, and there were still about 100 and some that they were going to have to
rehire.
They're real, but they were real people. They weren't just vacancies on paper. They were real people that may have to be let go.
And so, but I think this is going to have to be a 2 to 3 year process, more like a 3, maybe a 4 year process before things level out. What the school closures represent now, together with the cost saving measures that are being implemented already by the administration at United, it's not going to solve all the problem. It's going to carry over into next year and perhaps the following year. So we don't want to get to the reduction in force or terminating employees. I think that would have such a negative effect on our community. But I think that if we don't do something, that might be a reality.
Sure.
That might be a reality.
I agree. We went through the boundary changes when Matias Diano got split up with Borchers, right? You were a fifth grader. And so half your friends and some of your closest friends wound up at Borchers. And, I talked about the resiliency of the children, and of course they'll bounce back regardless of what boundary and building they wind up in. But certainly, you remember that.
Yeah, best friend still to this day, Christian Bowles. Shout out to the Bowles family that's out there watching. 5th grade year, had to go play against him in our flag football tournaments and basketball, and and we didn't get to see him our 5th grade, but we met up again in middle school. It was a 1 year delay, and then nothing changed. Still friends to this day. We're 34 years old now, and that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand the parents' concern about the family ties and the memories, and they don't want their kids to lose their friends or have to readjust their daily routine, right? Because that's part of it as well, right?
Sure.
Having to drive instead of now from Matias, let's say if they close it, after all, to have to take their kids to Borchers or to Malakoff, right? Is it a small drive? Yes, but still it alters their route and how they get to work, right? Wherever they're headed. But in that same token, they will end up all at the same middle school, not but a year later or 2 or 3 years later.
Sure.
Right. So I understand that, but I think at the end of the day, for the sake of the district, for the sake of keeping the state out of the hair of the district, this is probably the best option for everybody.
I tend to agree, and we're looking at the survival of UISD as a whole. And at the end of the day, the heart of the education for our kids is comes from our teachers and our staff.
Sure.
And that is what I'd like to protect anyway. And it's not the brick and mortar; it's the teachers and the staff So
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's your last line. You go through those 20 items that you all presented to us, and there's a lot of them you get there before you start going after benefits, stipends, staff. So you kind of hit all those other marks first. And again, some things will come out of consolidation. There'll be some savings out of that. There's a misinformation post out there that all you're going to save is like $400,000 by the closure of Matias de Ano. And it's just again, just more and more misinformation from people who don't have a real grasp of it. And any board member advocating that TEA should come in doesn't need to be on the board. That is an abdication of their duties. You were elected to govern. You were elected to make hard decisions, not just throw up your hands and say, well, maybe it's better if the TEA just comes in here and starts from scratch. That's an abdication of their duty, their responsibilities, why you were elected, why the people chose you to go there, is to make those hard decisions and discover whether or not there was mismanagement and all these other things, and bring those to light and then fix it, not throw up your hands and quit.
Well, anybody who's ever dealt with TEA in general knows that they are, on top of you every step of the way, every day, right? Teachers who have ever been, at a campus that has a TEA oversight, there's more walkthroughs than what they typically get. Right now, teachers get about, maybe 6 to 10, depending on how many there was. I think most TEA controlled campuses get about 20, right? Because they want to know what you're doing. They want to make sure that, are you following our curriculum? Are you doing
their curriculum and their standards, right?
Exactly.
Not necessarily the district. So, well, we'll leave it at this, and I'll again commend you again for the state of the district being an A-rated district, and even with all the financial pressures. There was a comment made somewhere that I gravitated to. It said that any district that has an A rating that has to have spent less money than most districts per student to get that A rating, because that's, you guys obviously don't have the resources to spend what other districts do. That's operational excellence under extreme pressure. And I think you guys have done really well. So I commend you on that. And some hard choices tomorrow, whatever they are. God be with you guys and make good decisions.
Thank you.
So we'll be right back with our hot topic, which is, are we alone in the universe? I know we're not alone on this school topic, but we're certainly questioning whether we're alone in the universe, and I think there are some interesting comments that are going to be made tonight. So we'll be right back after our commercial break.
With your host, Joe Barron.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
We're back with 3 Minute Mike. Our guest podcaster with us, Josh Belmatis, filling in for Joe Barron. Joan, hope you get well. I know you're there at the hospital watching us. Don't let your blood pressure go up on some of this stuff. This is going to be a good topic. So the question about whether we are alone in the universe, it has been talked about for forever, since cameras were available to capture some of these things. The Pentagon files recently put out files and pictures from warfighters in their planes capturing what is an unexplained phenomenon, an unidentified flying object. There's some over San Diego, like in this picture here, over some of our military bases, so it brings into question about espionage and some of those things. It's been around. I mean, even now, I think you have Congress out there having hearings about UFOs, and I think we've got a picture of the last time that they were testifying before Congress, and it's really become a very difficult subject matter because people get really polarized with whether we are or we're not in the alone in the universe. But I guess what we'll do, we have a little technical difficulty with our pictures. Well, the question was, it's in our movies, and the question is, what do aliens really look like? Do they look like this, or like this, or like this? That's from Fifth Element, or Independence Day, a little more menacing like this, or do they look like Mars Attacks? Comical,
Danger,
but
danger.
deadly.
But deadly, yeah, for sure.
Or, this one's from the Fifth Element. She's a alien. Or we could have them look like this, and they came out of Men in Black. So I don't know.
Oh man,
That might be. He might be.
did not just do
Something
that.
in
That-
alien undercover, man.
I can't explain this particular alien here whatsoever. It's one of those unexplained phenomena. So our good friend Richard, thank you for playing with us. When we were doing the production, this is us wearing our tin hats, making sure nobody stole our ideas or tapped into us here. But again, it's in our culture. It's in our pop culture. We see it in the movies, and we have these great debates about whether or not we are alone in the universe.
I think it's one of the most interesting topics that is discussed across the board. The movies have them, like you just mentioned, but we have Roswell. We have the Egyptian pyramids,
Right.
The pyramids in Mexico, the pyramids in South America. And I look at the way they were built, and their architecture, and some of the hieroglyphics that exist in these buildings.
across all three of them.
Yeah, and they're all very similar, and it just amazes me how the ingenuity, the engineering that existed back in those times. There's no way that it couldn't have been without the help of something bigger, something stronger, and I gravitate to aliens, extraterrestrial. That kind of those are my thoughts, and I just there's so much of it, and it's always kept top secret. It's always been a protected topic from the government, but in my opinion, it's got to exist. It's got to exist.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I know that the younger generation has had access to information that we didn't have. I mean, obviously, the internet and the information age has made you guys smarter than we are.
Well, I'll say that I think Carl Sagan said it best, right? If we are, the percentage that we are or we're not is the same. It's a very, very small percent, that we either are or we aren't. And both of those ideas are terrifying, right? Because either we are uniquely the only species or the only life in the entire universe, and we have somehow managed just to exist, or we're not, and we have no idea what else is out there, right? What other powerful or intelligent or non-intelligent life is out there that could very much so make or break the human civilization if we ever encounter them. We've sent out probes out, into space with maps on how to get back to us, with the Da Vinci model of the human
Right.
being, right? And it has it on the side of the probe, so if someone ever picked it up, they could take it apart and say, okay, based off of this star, this is how to get back to that location, right? We have sent maps out to get to us, and yet we've never made 100% verified, undoubtedly true contact yet.
Contact. Yeah. Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that we're alone, and that's always been my thing. I mean, the three P's, right? Is it plausible? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, definitely plausible. Possible? Well, maybe. Probable? Yeah, probably not. That's always been my position. That we've been around long enough to have maybe encountered this somewhere to have concrete evidence. But you point to some really interesting things, right? I mean, the pyramids. I mean, the engineers today just have no. I mean, they couldn't do some of these things. But then I'd also argue that the Romans built roads that some of our cities' paving crews can't match.
Their irrigation methods were quite eye opening. But yeah, you look at the pyramids. You look at the Mexican architecture. It's just absolutely no way in my mind that they with the ingenuity that existed back then, the ability. Unless you have machinery now. Well, we have machinery now that perhaps we could do something like that, but things like what we have today didn't exist back.
And you look at like the Egyptians and the Aztecs and the Mayans, right? They always reference deities, and it's never one, right? You talk about modern culture, right? Modern civilization talks about typically one deity, right? Whatever god you believe in, but they didn't. They all said that there were dozens and dozens of deities that they referenced to for different things, whether it be the sun, the rain, the food, war. It didn't matter what it was, right? They had different deities. So where did they get that from? Where did they get the ideology from that there had to be multiple people out there, right? And then you look at the hieroglyphics, like kind of what you're mentioning. There are similarities thousands and thousands of miles apart from the Aztecs to the Egyptians, and there are similarities in some of the things that they're describing. Some of the beings that they reference, right, have similar features or similar powers or similar places that they came from the sky, right, and then they left, right? How do they have no contact with each other, have some of those almost identical stories?
I mean, half those civilizations you're talking about were smoking things that are illegal in 50 states these days. I mean, so again, we get to this point where I have to be a skeptic. Yeah, some of these things are possible, but the human mind, I think, has a great imagination. I mean, it can conjure up some really spectacular things, and so, unlike what I believe is within my own religion, my belief in God, there is a case to be made. And I know David Almaraz and I are going to have this discussion someday soon about whether there is a God. I believe that there's evidence that substantiates eyewitnesses, physical contact, but I haven't seen any of that for aliens, extraterrestrials. And I know that some people have. There were stories out there. I know Manuel Rodriguez said that he saw something that he could, knows it's true. And Alex Costilla, one of my friends from school, as well, said that that he is seeing things that he can testify to.
Yeah, pilots nowadays have called in the unidentified objects that are flying around that they can't identify. And it's all circumstantial. You see it out there. You can't touch it. But you know that they're there. How can you say that they're not? I mean, your God and my God are the same, but that's not to say that He didn't create other. There are billions and billions of stars and planets out there that we haven't yet to discover.
Well, he's made some unexplainable phenomena. There's my buddy Richard as an example. I kid him all the time, but yeah, again, there are things that we gravitate to, but I think it's a lot of it has to do with us. You know, we see things. Our mind does things. You know, the plays tricks on our eyes and things of that nature. Where do we account for some of that?
Well, you look at, like, going back to what Javi was saying about the pilots, like, you know, it's on camera, right? These guys are flying, you know, F-15s, F-16s in there, and it's in the reticle, it's there, it's picking up on the radar, and as they try to get close to it, boom, it flies off faster than what they can keep up with. The the eyewitness testimonies, I've even in court not submissible, so I don't really take the, you know, I was picked up by something, and, you know, that's hard to believe. But when you have video evidence that's clear, especially in today's day and age where you have 4K footage and stuff like that, it's really hard to dispute that, because where did that object go, right? Whether it be an orb, you know, a flying disc, or just, you know, something that even recently the NASA was tracking some sort of object that came into the into our space so that we could see, got hit by something, right, and then was completely fine, just kept chugging along, right? Typically, you talk about comets and asteroids, if they get hit by some sort of debris or other object like another comet or an asteroid, they break apart. This thing didn't. This thing took whatever it was, I think it was a small asteroid, and just kept moving.
Yeah. Oh, you know, and you know, what about these, you know, these crop circles that exist out there?
Creative farming.
I haven't seen a crop circle in a long time.
They're so precise.
Creative farming. I mean, that's
You know, why would a farmer burn his own crops? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. But
it's true.
You know, one of the first movies that I remember seeing was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, that was just such a, you know, it opened up such a, you know, a different way of thinking about where we are today. And back then, if I came forward and said, you know what, I saw a UFO or I saw an alien, you know, you're certifiable. You know, you'd be you know, perhaps getting a lobotomy at some point. But you know, it you know, people tend to dismiss it, and he's not well, or he's not thinking straight.
He was hitting the saw.
Yeah.
But you know, I just can't help but see a lot of the evidence, and the hieroglyphics for me that I've seen, that I've looked at in different readings that I've done about this topic. You know, they describe different types of, you know, individuals and beings that have visited, and you know, to have that back then, it's just you know, it's a recording. It's a recording. They didn't have pictures. They didn't have cameras, but that was a recording.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they did it in stone. I mean, you're absolutely right. But again, you go back to this question about how much of that can we confirm, especially now that we can look back at that, and we have technology now that can do carbon dating and all these other things, and say, okay, well, how much of this is really real? And like you said, we have put out stuff into space, you know, since we were able to get stuff into space, hoping that some of it would come back. Pictures, sound. You know, we had these big satellite dishes for a long time. There's a movie where they're listening into space. Interstellar is another one that does kind of the same thing. But at the end of the day, nothing's ever come back. And we talk about looking for intelligent life. I've yet to find some of it here on this earth, let alone in space. So.
Well, you look at, like, I think octopus is a great example, right? They've done, you know, DNA testing on different species across the globe, right? And everything kind of has some sort of similarity, right? No matter what species you look at. But octopus, for some reason, are the one thing that has no even remote trace of being from this planet, right? And since it has no similarities on any of its DNA, right? It has very, very unique properties in its ability to move, think, you know, regrow its limbs, all those things, and no other species can really do that at the rate that an octopus can. And so things like that kind of add to that, right? Maybe it got, you know, like somebody's pet got left behind when they went back to wherever they're coming from, and here's the octopus now.
It's great on the grill, I think. Tortillas,
with
right?
a tortilla, yeah.
With a tortilla. But again, there are, you know, Stonehenge, you know, explain that. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some folks that we'll talk about, and those types of phenomena. But at some point, there's got to be an explanation for them. Have we found that explanation? Right? I don't know. I mean, the parallel universe, right? The parallel worlds.
multiverse.
The multiverse.
The
you know.
multiverse. That's
I
right.
will say this, because you're talking about 50 years ago, you said you saw an alien or you got abducted, you were treated pretty
Yeah.
poorly. Nowadays, you're more likely to believe a person that has had an encounter with an unidentified flying object or a phenomenon that he can't explain. There's paranormal activity in Laredo. There's a group that does that. There's others in other parts of the state and country that's what they focus on is paranormal activity. And they're the folks that just stay out in those quiet places in the dark and look up to the skies to see what they see.
We built telescopes for a reason. Our Air Force pilots, it's not documented and it's not claimed by just one person.
Yeah.
It's claimed by millions of people. Millions of people. So
But why so secretive? I mean, if so many of us see it, so many of us have encountered it, right? Why keep it secret? Why not let us know?
Panic.
Yeah.
I think that's the big one.
yeah,
Panic.
that's what it is. People are going to panic and we're going to be attacked. And
That scene from Independence Day always for forever will be like the epitome of what would happen if aliens come, right? There are people to be on top of skyscrapers with signs, and save us, take me with you, and then here comes the big laser beam that takes everybody out, right? I think if we really were to have true evidence that it's, undeniable and it were to be given out to the public, it would cause panic because people just don't know what to do with that information. They have no idea how to process it or what to say. Okay, what do I do now? Right? Does it change my religious beliefs? Does it change who my allegiance is to? Right? Because now people are gonna want, the aliens to come, govern us, right? Whatever, and it just goes into this crazy whirlwind of people who have always known from the beginning that their aliens existed, and now they want them to come on down.
I could say that the government, perhaps national security, we don't know where these people are from, what they're liable to do, if they're going to hurt our community, if they're going to attack the United States. And so there was probably some move to keep it quiet, for a long time until I don't think people were ready in their minds anyway to have this information, because you're right. What are they going to do now? What are we going to do now?
Well, I mean, governments exist for governments these days. I think it's the rare sight when government is for the people. It's by the people, of the people and for the people. And nowadays, I just think government is for government. And so, what are they protecting themselves at the end of the day? But if there's enough of us who have seen something and can point to it, why hasn't it become more public? Why haven't we had greater demand for transparency?
Well, I think that's why now it's starting to come out. They're starting to release a lot of these files. Yeah. They're starting to release a lot of the
they're at a bursting point where they can't hold it back. Right? I think the types of experiences and videos and pictures they have changed, right? Because like I said, going back 50 years ago, crop circles was like the big thing, right? Everybody had a crop circle out of nowhere in the middle of Nebraska, Dakota, right? And those don't really happen anymore nowadays. They've kind of stopped. But now we have pictures and videos, right? And we're getting obviously better cameras and better quality, so he's able to start to see things a little clearer. And I think at some point they're going to say, man, someone's going to get this 4K, 8K footage of this thing, and we're not going to be able to kind of keep a lid on it anymore.
Well, but it goes back to, other phenomena like Sasquatch and the Yetis and I mean, are these things abominable snowmen? Are they extraterrestrials, or is that my overgrown neighbor, who hadn't shaved in the last 2 weeks? I don't know. I mean, I can't point to what that is. But there's always an explanation. We always come back and say, well, that was a solar flare. It was this. It was that.
The weather balloon.
Weather balloon, right?
balloon,
A Chinese
yeah.
spy. There's Eric Swalwell flying.
Something like that.
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know. I just think that the history of the Egyptian history, the Mexican history, has, for me, with their markings, with their architecture, it makes me question how could they have done this if if our current engineering and our current machinery that we have couldn't do something like that, how did these people get to how did this civilization happen? And then you join that with their markings and their artwork on the walls, and it lends itself to the belief that we're not alone.
That potentially we could not be alone. Well, I mean, I get it, and those are the things, again, to me, they're just unexplained. That's it. I don't know. I can't. I'm agnostic to it. In other words, I don't know for sure. I don't know that there is something out there that was here before, and if they were here before, why'd they leave? Why'd they take off? I mean, given the engineering and the technology that supposedly had to design some of those things, man, we could use some of that now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not that our engineers are bad. I don't want to cast aspersions or any of our engineering community here. You guys are great engineers. But pyramids in Egypt, almost identical to something in a civilization that never crossed paths. Right? I mean, you have to ask that question, and I get it.
And there's apparently some pattern, that connects each one of these different sites together. So that's
really,
that's there's patterns coming out that a lot of these sites are connected, and they're all positioned in a certain way,
right?
For some purpose.
Interesting.
So it's quite a.
I don't know. I tell you, it's again back to the unexplained phenomena, what that is. But what I can't explain is that we got to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life. Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
So we're back from our commercial break with John for Joe Barron. Joe getting well tonight. Hopefully he'll be back on the show in a couple of weeks when we do our next podcast. Javier Montemayor and yours truly, Gene Belmontes. And we're starting to get some comments back. I've got one from our good friend Ralph Cisneros, who's talking about the UFO crash here in Laredo, often referred to as the Mexican Roswell. That there was a crash here, and let me see if I can read that. It said July 1948 Laredo UFO crash, sometimes called the Mexican Roswell, involved reports of a 90-foot silver disc crashing 30 miles southwest of Laredo, Texas, after being chased by a military aircraft. Witnesses allege military recovery team found the craft in a non-human body, like a tomato man. Here in Laredo, Texas, 1948.
Oh, wow.
Our good friend Ralph Cisneros posting that on the comments. My dad worked at the Air Force Base for 30 years. He left the Army, came back to Laredo, went and got a bookkeeping certificate, and then wound up at the Air Force Base for 30 years, civil service, in the salvage department. That is, he was responsible for getting rid of all the old equipment. They put it up for auction. They did those types of sales. I never heard this story before, Ralph. That's a good story.
Laredo used to be a training facility for
Yeah.
the Air Force here, for many years, and it wasn't until a Republican by the name of Nixon came into the presidency that it was closed down. I'm assuming because he wasn't supported or he didn't win.
The rumor has it was that the mayor did not go out and greet him at the airport,
Maybe.
and so.
But it was shut down, and so we lost a lot of good people that moved out of the community. But yeah, I don't doubt that. It just
It's possible. I mean, it's out there. It's in the lore. I know my cousin Diana Cuellar once told me of a story that she tracked this thing for some length of time before it just zipped away, and so she's got a story out there. And I've heard others. And again, for me, I always go back to, okay, but I need something a little more substantial. I remain skeptical. I'm doubting Thomas. I got to put my fingers on the side and see it.
Well, what would you do today? Let me pose that quick. What would you do today if one of your best friends that came and told you, hey, Gene, Josh, I was driving down I-35 and I saw a UFO. I saw an unidentified flying object. And what would your first impression be?
Mine would be, hey man, were gummies involved?
What substance were you on?
What substance were you on?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you leave, Cotillas a little early or something after a few beverages?
Yeah.
Again, depending on how he describes it, what he describes, I'd be fascinated and interested, of course, but again, I always go back to, could it have been a plane? Could it have been a drone? A border patrol helicopter or something?
Drones nowadays are
drones.
a little more common, and they're big. And some of them are small, some of them are bigger. It depends on the project, but drones can be something, I guess, that can be confused with those. But when you're talking about 1940, 1950, what was that old sitcom, The Robinsons?
Oh yeah.
Danger, Will Robinson. That was in the late 50s,
Robinson
early 60s.
Crusoe, right? Family Robinson.
Family Robinson. That was, even back then, when without the technology that we have, it was such a big issue. But I don't know. How would you address that?
I think going to kind of the same point you mentioned, right? The first question is what did you see, right? Because I think that token description of circular, silver or black, right? Especially if it's at night, right? And then it zips off, right? It's pretty common what the common description everybody gives. Sometimes people say, well, it started off as one and it broke up into two or three, glowing orb, especially once they're going back to night. Look, there's a really interesting show out there on Discovery called Skinwalker Ranch, right? And they use top of the line equipment to look at magnitude and polarity and all this other stuff, and they're seeing fluctuations when they see these objects kind of appear out of the blue. So, did your radio often go off? Did you lose signal? Right, those are all the questions you got to ask. But definitely, yeah, it goes into an interrogation of what did you see? How long did you see it for? All of that to kind of get a gauge on if it's true or not. Right?
Were you buzzing? Were you not?
Yeah,
buzzing?
right.
What were you buzzing on?
That's right. The dispensaries nowadays put out some crazy stuff, so you be careful what you get from these guys.
And part of my skepticism is exactly some of the things that you guys have talked about, the technology that we have today, the ability to capture it in full detail, concrete evidence. I've measured, the radiation coming off that thing, or we have some undetermined metal that we've captured and we don't know what it is. There's nothing like it on this planet. We just came around the moon. You would think that it's a great observation post. Now, they could have set up shop over there and be looking down at us and maybe they hit in a crater and decided, well, we don't want them to discover us just yet, but we don't see anything when we've made those trips to the moon. We have telescopes. We don't see anything through those
Well,
telescopes.
I just don't think it's reported anymore.
Yeah, I think we've done it. Going to really counter your post or counter your argument with exactly that information, right? We have such good technology nowadays that I think the government knows that where these things are coming, headed to, and where they're at before we even get an opportunity to even see it. And if you take your camera and you point it at Border Patrol helicopter, that infrared from the camera, they're going to capture that, and they'll go ask you what you took a picture for and why. It's the same ideology, right? That laser goes up in the air, and they'll track it to see what video you took and why you took it. They had somebody from the U.S. intelligence go in Congress testify saying that they had a crash, and this is like maybe 6 months or a year ago. They had a crash of an unidentified object, and they recovered biologics. And when the senators begin to ask, can you describe more? No, I can't. Unfortunately, it's classified.
But so much of this technology, especially like the telescopes, it's found in academia. It's not found in government. I mean, government grants. I say that because the federal government funds a lot of stuff in the universities. But do you think that like those folks that don't believe that we landed on the moon? There's a lot of folks that. There was over 4,000 people involved in the preparation, the launch, the trajectory, the recovery, all that. In all of this time, not one whistleblower or one guy has put in his last will and testament here, gave it to a lawyer. The day I die, you spill all the beans, and no one's ever recanted what's happened.
You're showing your age. Yeah.
Well,
That's true.
Well, there was hundreds of people working on the Avengers movies, and not a single person leaked any of that information because Marvel would shoot you over it. I'm pretty sure the government would do the same.
Yeah, I think we're going to eventually have to put up another border wall in space to prevent these illegal aliens
Like
from coming
from
in.
Spaceballs, right? The big sphere that kind of protects everybody, and you got the code to get into the space, to the little space port.
I think the knowledge is there. I think the information is there. I think the evidence is there. I just don't think that it is something that the government feels needs to be transparent now. That they should be transparent about now. I think eventually, yeah, we will get there, but I'm not sure what their why they're holding this back, but.
Right.
And perhaps it's the same thing we just talked about: the panic, the inability to deal with the information, how the reaction is going to be. Are we going to be attacked? National security issues. I don't know, but I do think that they have the information. I think they know who killed Kennedy. I think they know who.
I was thinking the same thing.
It's
That's
just
hilarious.
I think the information is already there. It's just, not everything has to be so transparent. And perhaps they feel that we're on a need-to-know basis.
Does the general public believe we can't handle this? I mean, how many out there who are watching us tonight or will see the clips in the next couple of days believe that that we can't handle the truth? That the old Jack Nicholson line, we can't handle the truth. That whatever the government is hiding would be so detrimental to us. Either way, I mean, whether it's something that could harm us or something be completely beneficial to us, but for whatever reason, we just can't handle that truth.
I think it's a domino effect, right? So you talk about, aliens have been a topic of conversation forever, right? And you finally say, yeah, they exist, right? We've known about it the whole time. We've kept it secret. We've done everything in our power to make you feel like that you were wrong. Well, what about JFK? What about, this, that, and the moon landing, right? And you go into a million other conspiracies that exist out there that have been covered up by the government, and now it turns into, well, that all has to be true, right?
Can you imagine the vast scheme, the conspiracy about keeping the fake moon landing quiet? You can't. It's 400 over 4,000 people.
It's 4,000
people involved. There's just no way. Somebody's got to tell their wife. Their wife's going to tell her group of friends, and or the one tells the husband's going to have a barbecue and tell his friends, and there's just no way to keep that for so long.
Yeah.
For so long.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that there's the difficulty in keeping the lid on something like that. And then you add to that, reporters and journalists and all those others who were watching this. And we got to see it live, for a lot of us that were alive at the time.
yeah, and you kind of tie in the whole disappearance of these scientists that are involved with space exploration.
Mhm.
It
Could be. Could very well be. I mean, I remain agnostic only because there's got to be at least one doubting Thomas in the group that says, I got to put my fingers on it. I got to be able to see it. I got to touch it. So
mass hysteria. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be it.
That's where I'm at. I really do believe that if we were to finally pop the top on this, it is just going to be chaos for every tinfoil guy out there, and plus any anti-government person, right? Just they've been lying this whole time. They've been keeping the truth from us. What else are they hiding from us, right? Let alone all the conspiracy theorists out there that have what's the Andromeda stuff? All the politicians drink blood, and I don't know what the lizard people, and oh man, you talking about every conspiracy in the book is going to have some sort of truth now, right? That every person, the lizard person, and New World Order, and all that stuff, it gets squirrely.
So
fast.
then my theory that Richard Russell was a Men in Black is a true statement then at some point.
As long
One of the aliens.
There was that one alien in Men in Black 2 that could beatbox really well. I think I've heard Richard beatbox pretty good, so I don't know.
At Super R Bar 30, thank you for that. But the question still remains: can we handle the truth? Would you, if we went out there, the government came out one day and just said, "Hey, we got it under control. We know what they are. We know who they are. We can handle it." Would we lose our minds?
No. Yeah.
I think especially if they come out and say that we can't, right? If we ever come encounter, we've had an encounter 20 years ago with this species or this, race of aliens, and if they ever came back in full force, we would lose. That has to be a factor into, right? You talk about, right, Independence Day, Mars Attack, right, where they come out of the blue and it's just, for a while, right, complete annihilation of anybody going against it. I just have a hard time thinking that we could travel, or that species could travel across space, heat, cold, pressure, all that stuff, and they would be taken out by AR-15s or a tank.
No.
It's just not possible. They'd have to have a very, very advanced way of protecting the craft that they're traveling in. Like I mentioned earlier, there was something that entered into our field of view in outer space and got hit by a comet and just kept moving along. And then not only did I think it's like I said, I saw where it got hit and a little bit piece of it kind of broke off, and then it came back together, or it kind of kept coming with it. I can't remember exactly how it played out, but I remember it was like for a while pretty big on the news, like this craft.
Well, you saw the capsule from Artemis that came back in. I mean, it withstood 20,000 degree temperatures as re-entering the atmosphere, and I mean, it blew off a couple of panels, but
Tiles.
Yeah, a couple tiles, and that's it. Other than that, it looked great. I mean, if my kitchen tile was that sturdy, I probably wouldn't be replacing it every 5 or 10 years. But yeah, I can see where that's a possibility. But again, why haven't they made their presence known to us? I mean, or have they? Javi?
They have.
They have.
I think they
Javi
have.
believes they have.
I think they have. I just think it's
Well,
quiet.
we're going to be right back, and we're going to tackle the last bite, our last segment of the night. Of the last bite, we'll come back and we'll talk about bakeries.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, We're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
Back to the last bite segment where we end the show talking about food. We have contentious debate or a good discussion. Always leaves us hungry, so we always go back and talk about the last bite. And this week's last bite segment is about bakeries. Best bakery in Laredo.
Oh, I like their social media presence a lot. Is Quickie Bakery. I love those guys. They put out some great Instagram reels and Facebook posts. They always have very themed for the time conchas and stuff. They always do May 4th. They do Easter, Christmas, you name it. And I've had them before, and every time they're a great concha. Even like their cookies and stuff are great. Every once in a while, when I go play tennis every once in a while on Sunday mornings at Market, and I'll stop at Quickie on the way back home, and it's always good.
Quickie Baker for a millennial, a Gen Z, or a Gen X. That's kind of a new, an interesting pick, because I would have thought you would have picked something that was more kind of a novelty, kind of a new thing, the pasteleria or Urbana, right?
Yeah.
I had Urbana a couple of times, and don't get me wrong, I like it, but to that point, I think I don't like that. I don't like the over the top, walnut chocolate chip, boom boom, this huge thing. My wife, talking about bakeries, loves the baklava place in San Antonio. Every time we go, so we're in San Antonio probably once or twice a month. Baklava. And every time we go, and it's like, even my daughter's like, can we stop and get the little fruits that they have? They have these imitation fruits. They look like raspberries, strawberries, mangoes, bananas, you name it, and they are
a confection.
It's a confection, yeah. It's a white chocolate coating, and then it has a mousse of whatever that fruit is inside. And we've had all of them, and they have specialty ones like the Labubus were a big thing for a while. They had a Labubu one, and we had that because my daughter wanted one. And that I just don't like it. It's just too much for me. I just give me a concha or a regalo, something that's just simple, easy, and I'm just fine.
Yeah.
Hi.
I've got to tell you that I grew up. My grandmother used to send me to the bakery down the street on Springfield, a couple of blocks from Saunders, and
take calls, guys.
And we got a call.
Let me take the call.
All right, let's take the call.
You're on 3 Minute of Mike.
Gene.
Joe, here you are. Hey, Joe, we're in the last bite. Javi was just about to tell us about his favorite bakery. So you're telling us about going down the street?
So and you could buy a bag of assorted different types of breads, cuernitos, marranitos, regalos, conchas, general cookies, donuts, for 10 cents, 15 cents each piece. You'd walk away with $2-3. You could fill a bag full of stuff. That's how I grew up. Now, it's gotten expensive. It's gotten really expensive. But I tell you, I've been to several bakeries. Quickie Bakery is one of those that has like a sandwich, like a biscuit sandwich.
Oh yeah, I love that thing.
With frijol and like a sausage, and really delicious. Lately, I've been going here to Gonzalez Bakery. They just opened up here on Jackman, and they have excellent assortment of different types of
Mexican sweet bread.
Yes, marranitos. My favorite's always been the regalito. You know, you give me a good regalito that has, you know, a good amount of
Jelly in the middle?
of jelly and filling in the middle.
Nice.
And I'm a
Yeah.
happy camper.
Heck yeah.
Bolillos is always a good place
Yeah,
to
Bolillos,
go.
yeah,
They
Cake
have
Land,
you know great cakes, and I'm there daily. That's where I normally have my breakfast and my morning organizational thoughts. But
Joe, what's your go-to bakery?
So, I'm a coffee guy. So I'm trying to hit all these these new coffee places that end up with baked with sweetbread. There's a bunch of them. There's a new one called Pasteleria. I think it's 77 or something like that. They have
Oh,
very
yeah.
good pastries.
That's the one over there on
Del Mar, in
on
the-
Del Mar
the
in
little
the
plaza.
French Quarter.
The one across from the
Yeah.
French Quarter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tacos Quisios.
But you know what I can't find, and I don't think there was ever a place that's gonna match it, is a good semita.
There's a place on Springfield, one block south of Saunders, that still makes a good semita. And I don't know the name of that bakery, but they make a great semita. But the one you're talking about used to be over by the Boys and Girls Club in that area, right behind somewhere near Church Guadalupe.
Superior, I think.
Oh, Superior, that's it.
yeah. Superior. Yeah.
Superior, yeah, that's
That's the one on. That's the one that used to be by the Guadalupe Church.
Yeah, by the Guadalupe Church. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There's one, you know, who also
They
has
were
a very
very
good.
delicious semitas.
You know, I had it the other day. Was talking about Tacos Kisi. They're really doing well across the community, but they have excellent sweetbread. Tacos Kisi is always, you know,
Really?
they have very good.
I didn't even know they even had
I
that.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, neither did I. It's like what's the name of the restaurant in San Antonio? As you walk in, it's got a bunch of sweetbread as well.
Oh, mi
Famous.
tierra.
Mi Tierra.
Yeah, I was
That's
there
right,
the
San
other day.
Antonio. Mi Tierra. Love that
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. But you know, going back, Mexican sweetbread that's kind of been the tradition here, and for a while in Laredo, you couldn't find anything other than Mexican sweetbread. You couldn't find a good donut. Then you know, eventually, Dunkin' Donuts came back. I think Dunkin' Donuts existed for a while, then it came back. Krispy Kreme, and now Shipley's is here as well. But I've never been able to find a good bakery that had, all of the other stuff, all the French pastries. I love a good croissant. I love a good chocolate croissant. Some of the brownies, some of the kolaches, some of the things I've seen at Prasex on the way to Houston in Victoria. There's a place in just outside of Waco West where Ann Hutura's from. It's a Czechoslovakian or Czech pastry shop.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's right.
those kind of places
Gene,
I like.
Gene,
Monday.
so Santa Maria turns into what, Lafayette, right?
No, that's Saunders.
So
Saunders.
Lafayette, you get to a bridge.
Yes.
Before you get to the bridge, there's a little paneria there. There's a place that also sells sweetbread. I don't remember the name of it, but that has some good conchas right there.
We're gonna try it, Joe. We're gonna try that, but don't let your doctor hear that you're talking sweetbread. That you're gonna go eat that stuff, man.
Yeah, bro.
I know.
Blood
I
pressure
know.
might go up, man. Just to keep it low. Keep it low.
Your doctor's blood pressure is going to go up. Yeah, so my favorite place in Laredo is also La Reinera or Quickie.
Yeah.
Those are my two favorite places, but I like Urbana a lot. A little pricey, but really, really good stuff. Urbana, which is right there
McPherson by the public library.
by the public library.
That's right.
It's one of my favorite places. And in San Antonio, La Panaderia. I love going there for breakfast. And in Austin, the Swedish Hill on 6th Street.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about the coffee, Joe. Wherever they have good coffee, that's my go-to. And if they have
That's right,
sweetbread and other tacos and things like that, it's all good.
That's a plus.
It's a plus, man. So
Agreed. Well, Joe, thanks for being our first call-in tonight. We've had some good comments come in over the internet. They're off of social media. I appreciate you calling in. Hope to get feeling better. We'll have you back in a couple of weeks.
Hopefully, and tell Javi that, he told his age when he was talking about
Will Robinson. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
What can I
Definitely.
say, brother? I have to embrace it, man. I have
Yes,
to
sir.
embrace it.
All right, Joe. Have a great recovery, buddy. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Yeah.
So that's our first call-in. We've got a call-in number now, and we're going to make that more active. And as we get this show rolling some more, fix some of these lighting issues that we've had. Our camera doing some strange things, like the strange things we talked about on tonight's hot topic. Are we alone in the universe? Keep the comments coming. We'll keep answering them either on our YouTube channel or Facebook and some of the clips and reels that we got going. If you have a topic you'd like for us to cover, we've got some hot ones coming up soon. Obviously, the board's going to make a decision on school closures coming up soon. We've got elections. We're going to talk about the county elections coming up. Some interesting's going on out there with a anonymous letter that was sent. A cowardly anonymous letter. And some people put your name to it. I've been one of those folks who've been in politics before, and I never shied away from making my opinion known and putting my name behind it, because I think it's important when we talk about transparency and being whistleblowers, putting your name to it. Hopefully there's protections for those folks, and if not, we'll make it happen that you're protected, because you should speak up. I applaud anybody who comes forward and says these are the things going on. But again, that's a topic for another show. Tonight, let us know what your favorite bakery is, whether it's here in Laredo or anywhere else in the world. And if we're ever in that area, we might stop by and grab a quick bite, the last bite. So from all of us here at 3 Minute Mike, have a great night. Josh, thank you for sitting in for Joe.
Always.
Javi, as always, you've got a big task, and so we praying for you as well. Make good decisions. And
Light those candles, man, and everybody have a good week.
that's right. Have a great week. Good night.
Good night.